Hello Team FD and welcome back to Transfer Review, where Pat and I put silly season underneath the microscope. Now, this is normally of Euro football daily fame, but the transfer window, it would seem, has been a little bit forgotten about. And we're only a month out from the start of the Premier League season, Pato. Teams are falling out of the World Cup now, big teams at that. Managers at club level will want to sort their business in the here and the now, starting with Jurgen Klopp and Julian Brandt.
Yeah, Julian Brandt was obviously part of the Germany squad that crashed out at the group stage, preferred to Leroy Sané, which is why he's been in the news recently. Now, the Star, not necessarily the most reliable source, claimed that he is now Liverpool's top target after the failure of that move for Naby Keita. Now, despite going to the World Cup with Germany, only played 19 minutes across 3 games, which is not exactly a star-making performance, though in those limited minutes had 4 shots, managed to hit the woodwork twice. So a little bit unlucky not to get on the score sheet in his first World Cup. Now, he's been a target for Liverpool for a long time. We've actually had this come back once or twice before when it's kind of been rumoured that he was going to leave Leverkusen. Talked about this back in January 2017, I think. He was a target for them. They obviously ended up moving for Mo Salah on the wing that summer. He's played 39 games for his club last season. It wasn't an amazing year, 12 goals and another 3 assists. But that's totally reasonable. 22 years old, still room to improve. It would be an interesting move. I'm not sure it's a like for like when it comes to Fekir though. He's much more of an out-and-out winger than Fekir is, wouldn't you say?
Well, he's definitely a utility man, let's say, which is where he differs indefinitely from Fekir. He played in 7 different positions last campaign for Leverkusen, featuring as a wing-back, as a centre-forward, playing on either flank, which could be extremely useful should Liverpool suffer an injury to one of those vital front 3, right? His creative numbers are solid, so he's similar to Fekir in that regard, and he's got a high number of chances created per game, 2.3 to be precise. Fekir's on about 1.9, but Fekir was a lot more decisive than he was last season, and that is a result of playing in an advanced position consistently, right? Fekir was contributing to a goal every 93 minutes last season compared to Brandt's 193. However, perhaps a more reliable player when it comes to injuries than Fekir. Fekir obviously has a patchy record over the last 2 years because of those 2 awful knee injuries, those ACL ruptures. And he's nearly 3 years older than Brandt, so the German is likely to grow in stature during that time. He might become the player that Fekir has matured into over the last 18 months or so. Jurgen Klopp is said to be ready to spend around £50 million on him, which is a sizable chunk of his transfer budget, but still 16 million less than Fekir would have demanded had he moved from Lyon. Guys, what do you think? Would this be sound business for Liverpool? Would this mean, along with Keita, along with, who else have they signed? Fabinho, that's the one, that Liverpool have conducted the best transfer business in the Premier League thus far? Whoa. Not got a lot of competition, have they, at the moment? Jorginho not signed for Manchester City yet. Fred at Manchester United, arguably the other marquee signing.
Yeah.
Let us know in the poll just above. Next up is Swaz specialist. It's Benjamin Pavard, whose exploits in Russia might have earned him a move to Bayern Munich.
One of the all-time worst things you've said to me. But the 22-year-old French defender has been linked with a move to Bayern by Bild. Obviously, he's at Stuttgart at the moment. Now, Borussia Dortmund have taken an interest as well, but apparently Bayern have already offered 30 million euros. However, Stuttgart's sporting director is a guy called Michael Reschke, who was previously sporting director at Bayern Munich. He apparently thinks that they can keep hold of Pavard for another year and maybe get up to 50 million euros for him. He's signed up until 2021. His stock's only rising with his performances at the World Cup. He could play at right back, he could play at centre back. I think he could play in midfield. I don't know. I think that there looks like there are a lot of clubs interested in him as well. I've seen Arsenal linked with him too. I've seen Real Madrid linked with him. And in Russia, I mean, he looks a little bit awkward at right back, but his numbers are very good. The goal aside, he's making 3.7 tackles and interceptions per game. That's really solid. Making 4 clearances per game as well because he provides that aerial presence. He certainly looks like he's going to be a good player, and this would absolutely fit with Bayern Munich's usual buying strategy, right? Look around the league, see who the best players are, snap them up, dominate the league.
Talking of buying strategy, we obviously got this recently from CEX. The barcode's still on the back.
Of course, it's from
CEX. Great value, but the shop always stinks. Get some air fresheners. Back to Pavard. Started his career in Ligue 1, didn't he, with Lille back in 2014 before signing a 4-year contract with Stuttgart in 2016. Like Pato said, still a bit of time to run on that. where he went on to win the Bundesliga 2, the Bully 2. So playing in the second tier in recent memory. Last season, Pavard made the 4th most interceptions in the Bundesliga, along with the 3rd most blocks, like you said. Has that natural defensive nous, looks a little bit awkward, a bit robust going forward, doesn't he? But he is versatile. He's played centre-back, he's played right-back, he's played central defensive midfield. I think he's even played central midfield on occasion, which doesn't strike me as something I would do with him. Let's compare him to Joshua Kimmich though, because if he was to sign for Bayern Munich, that would be his competition for a place, wouldn't it? Joshua Kimmich making 66 passes a game last season, 10 more than Pavard, which shows that Kimmich likes to get forward more naturally.
He plays on a possession
doubles
side
down
as well.
on the overlap. Yeah, exactly. However, 70% of Pavard's passes go forward compared to Joshua Kimmich's. But I suppose if Joshua Kimmich is taking if his average position is higher, then it might not be a best reflection.
Yeah, like a cross
how
is kind of a cross might be a
Yeah.
backward pass, but it's ultimately getting you closer to goal.
But what that does show is that Pavard is a positive passer, which always bodes well for top level centre backs,
Especially
right?
at 22.
Yeah, that's every top manager now wants their at least one centre back to be able to step out of defence. Gerard Piqué at Barcelona, Mats Hummels at Bayern Munich, John Stones at Manchester City, and to start these quick attacks, don't they? So Pavard might be that player in the future. £50, that'd be a bargain. £50 million is a lot of money to spend on him at this point, though. I'd actually like to see him stay at Stuttgart, continue his development, rather than become a squad player at Bayern Munich. And I don't think one good tournament is going to be enough to coax into convincing someone to part with that sort of money for him.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends who else is interested. Like we said, there's been a lot of interest for him. And if Bayern did sell Jerome Boateng, then maybe getting, a front foot passer, young defender who could actually play in a back three with Hummels and Zula, that might be not the worst move in the world. He had a good season in Germany. It's not just the tournament in Russia, but I don't know.
For £50 million, when Stuttgart are clearly taking quite a hard line view on his transfer.
But I feel like it's one of those things, isn't it, where if Arsenal were to buy him, they would pay 50 million. If Bayern buy him, we'll find out they've got him for 18 million in 2 years' time.
Yeah, with Serge Gnabry on loan for a season. Bollocks. Moving on. We head to Stamford Bridge for our next litany of transfer rumours, Pato. And if Sarri comes in, Corriere dello Sport and the Metro think he might move pretty quickly for a couple of players based in Italy.
Well, actually, before we get to that one, there's Golovin as well. Ooh. Since we talked about him last week, Chelsea now seem to be in concrete talks for the 22-year-old signing. His mother has confirmed this. So we will see what that turns into. But the other two rumours are Pjanic coming out of Juventus and Rugani as well. So I don't know. I mean, Pjanic, apparently Chelsea are willing to pay 70 million quid, but the rumour is that Juventus would only accept 85 million. And he's also been linked to Barcelona. And if Barcelona want him and are willing to pay for him, you've got to expect he'd go there. He'd be a much better fit for Barcelona than a Chelsea, in my view. Yeah,
we've had this conversation before about Miralem Pjanic at Barcelona, haven't we? Just to digress for a second, I quite like him there. I think he's done brilliantly in the Regista role for Juventus, and I could really see him helping out Sergio Busquets, now he's post-30, in that deep-lying playmaker position for Barcelona. Should they mix it up next season and not necessarily go with that quite rigid 4-4-2. I mean, Rakitic put in an awful lot of work on that right-hand side last season, didn't he? I think he delivered the second most balls into the Barcelona opposition's box after Messi. So he was used more of a creator than a destroyer, and he can be both, can't he? But I think he'd be a great addition. They've been looking for someone like Verratti, like Thiago Alcantara, but I think he's at the peak of his powers now and he'd make the biggest difference. So have we got to agree to disagree on that?
Yeah, I think he's 28. I don't think he's very good defensively. He's okay. I think he needs a lot of protection, and I'm not sure.
But Busquets can do the defensive duties, right?
But if aren't you bringing him in to help Busquets out? Like if you then say, oh well, Busquets now you have to protect Pjanic. That seems to me, I don't know. I think that there are guys they could have got. I think if they'd got, let's say, Rodri before Atleti got him, huge defensive output, great passer, quite similar to Busquets in a way, but actually more defensive work. That would be interesting. I think what they really need is just a real kind of workhorse next to him. And basically, Pjanic has never been as good as Rakitic in my mind. And I would still prefer Rakitic to him. But At Chelsea, it seems more like the Pjanic rumour is because everyone thinks they need a regista because everything ran through Jorginho at Napoli. And I don't know about you, but I never really saw Sarri's sides play football until I saw Napoli. And so I don't really know whether he can switch formation, whether he can run the team through a centre-back, or run it through the wings. I have no idea.
No, can't say I was a massive, watcher of his Empoli side.
No.
But Sarri and Italian managers in general are very good at adapting to the players they have, to the situations they're stepping into, right?
Sure.
And I don't think that in the Chelsea setup it immediately lends itself to a sort of Sarri ball kind of philosophy.
No.
They've got some quite brutish defenders, haven't they, really? Apart from Azpilicueta, who's a little bit more cultured. They've got Rudiger, who I think there's a lot more to come from, and we'll move on to him in a second. They've got, I suppose if you're going to play Cesc in a 3 like he did at times last season, Conte, then Cesc can still be that creator from deep, can't he? I think he was making 4.5 chances per game last season, which was a Premier League high. So there's that conflict as well. Maybe you bring in a Pjanic if you think Fabregas's creative numbers are going to drop off, but they need to strengthen in other areas, right, than sort of midfield, because you've got Kante who can essentially do it all. You've got more to come from Bakayoko, and you've got Cesc if needs be, and then you've got workhorses like Drinkwater, like Ross Barkley.
So I disagree. I think they do need to strengthen in midfield, but I see your point that Kante basically solves a lot of problems, right, in your midfield. You can kind of put anyone around him and Kante's going to give you a functioning midfield because he's that good, he covers that much ground. He's even improved his passing to the point where you can run passing games through him. But yeah, when I do look at Barkley and Drinkwater and Bakayoko, I think, and Fabregas is getting old, I kind of think, Jesus Christ, we need some guys.
If Bakayoko can be the driving force he was at Monaco,
sure,
then that alleviates some of the worry, doesn't it? If Fabregas is protected then by Bakayoko and Kante, fine. And I think Drinkwater and Barkley are decent squad players. I worry about Chelsea more so up front. And if moves materialise for Morata, like Dortmund, like going back to Juventus, then they're going to be even more reliant on Hazard, who, whether he's playing in that number 10 role, whether he's coming in from the wide left, there's going to be even more sort of responsibility heaped on his shoulders. And there were various points last season where he just didn't look like he was enjoying playing in that setup. He was isolated. Pedro's age now, of course, we've forgotten about him. I think Chelsea could, maybe just use upgrades all over the park, but I would start with another source of goals. That's just my thinking.
Like a creative wide guy.
But they've also been linked with a guy at the other end in Daniele Rugani from Juventus, and Corriere dello Sport saying that Sarri would go in for him to the tune of £35 million. And now they've got past them too. He played under Sarri at Empoli. Rugani's often said in the press that he's a fan of Sarri's brand of football, which I think most purists would be. What do you make of him? Have you watched him an awful lot? Do you think he'd slot into that back 4 or back 3 and help solidify it a little bit?
He's a very good defender. I mean, whenever he played for Juventus, and he did play in a back 3 and a back 4, he was extremely assured on the ball. He plays it forwards a lot. He's pretty competent when he has to make a defensive intervention, but you wouldn't really describe him as an all-action defender. Chelsea have still got a pretty interesting complement of defensive players. Like Azpilicueta, great, though getting old. Christensen, great. Rudiger, I'm not a fan, but he was totally fine last season. He's a perfectly good centre-back for Chelsea. Cahill getting old. Luiz, still inexplicably at the club.
Completely forgot about that.
So he would be, I think he'd be a great signing for them. And you know what, if Sarri wants that guy to run, if he wants to run his passing through one of his defenders in a way that Koulibaly is capable of, or Bonucci was when he was at Juve, then that would alleviate some of the pressure on the kind of regista guy.
Yeah, and I think Rugani can be that positive ball-playing centre-half. 80% of his passes last season went forward. He's quite a decisive tackler as well. 65% of his tackles came off last season, so a little less rash maybe than a Rudiger, but he doesn't have that lovely diagonal ball that Rudiger is capable of. I think there is more to come from Rudiger. I just think he needs tempering. It's a little bit like, it reminds me of Otamendi when he first came to Manchester City, and he's a little bit bullish, he's a little bit over the top, isn't he? He commits, he rushes into midfield.
Sure.
And it annoys me somewhat. But I actually think, more so Rugani than Pjanic. Are you on board with that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So who should Chelsea move for? Would you take Regani as your marquee signing, Chelsea fans? Let us know in the comments below. Last section then before we move on to the transfer shocker, and it's Alassane Plea to West Ham. Now the Nice man quietly had a very good season, didn't he, Pato? And is arousing the interest of several Premier League parties. Obviously West Ham always sticking their oars in, aren't they?
Yeah, well, everyone's kind of sniffing around this guy, and from both ends of the kind of Premier League food chain. You've got Fulham and Newcastle who are interested. West Ham have apparently submitted a bid of £27 million, and Tottenham are considering a bid or have submitted a bid as well. We're not entirely sure. Now, Nice have previously been asking for just under 27 million. They claimed another club had offered 25. But I guess all this interest is making them think, let's milk this for as much as we can. He's 25 years old. He's a centre forward. Like, if you can't get money for that, who can you get money for? Now, Plea at the moment has got to wait for Nice to give him the all clear, for him to go to London, talk to West Ham, realise they're terrible, go home. But he failed to turn up to Vieira's first training session as Nice boss, as did Mario Balotelli. So it seems pretty clear at this point that he's going to leave. And I don't know, I mean, Vieira's obviously disappointed, but you've got to think that if they can get in the region of 30 million quid for a guy they spent £500,000 on, that Nice are going to sell. Like, Nice are not a club where they can just say no to that sort of money.
Yeah, and I think that's a fairly reasonable price for a guy of his talents. Now, if you're a fan of one of those clubs and don't know a lot about him, then let me give you the down low. He joined Nice in 2014. He's made 135 appearances for the club so far. In 2017-18, he scored 16 goals and registered 5 assists in the league. So sort of Nabil Fekir numbers, and they're not spoken about in the same breadth, are they really? He was contributing to a goal every 132 minutes last season as a result. That's better than Javier Hernandez at West Ham, who is also, 5 years his senior and barely played. So not the greatest comparison. He's taking 3 shots a game, which is pretty good for someone that's not an out-and-out forward, right? Is he more of an attacking midfielder, would you say?
He was. I always thought of him as a wide forward, but I think now Favre does that thing, doesn't he, where he basically parks everyone in defence and then just plays 2 up top.
He was playing off Balotelli, wasn't he?
Yeah, but it means you've got those guys. They have to create pretty much out of nothing, kind of like Arnautovic was doing for West Ham last season. Didn't have a lot of support, had to do it on his own. So pretty good numbers from that point of view.
There are certain similarities to Arnautovic, should Arnautovic depart the club, obviously linked with Manchester United in one of the more rogue transfer rumours we heard. He takes 2 of his shots from inside the box. He beats his man 2 times a game. So he's got a lot of weapons in that forward arsenal. Although it is worth noting, a lot like the Austrian, he has a patchy discipline record, let's say. Last season he was sent off once and received 8 yellow cards. But
That's mental for a forward.
Yeah, Pellegrini's the sort of guy who can definitely temper that sort of attitude.
But it also might not be an attitude thing, right?
Sort of guy.
It might be a Favre thing because there's so much tactical fouling. Whereas Pellegrini, I'm really hoping Pellegrini plays like kind of optimistic, attractive
expansive football.
And also, but the thing I saw about Plea that I thought was good, because obviously he had that horrible knee injury in the very recent past. He actually played over 3,000 minutes in the league last year, so got loads of minutes, really fit.
Yeah, and with Hernandez at 30 and Arnautovic at 29, and with Lanzini as their 3rd highest top goal scorer last season, attacking reinforcements are needed, especially with the Argentine having suffered that horrific injury in the build-up to the World Cup. So this makes sense, and I think if this happened, this would be a real coup for West Ham and Pellegrini. He's made very sensible moves in the transfer market so far, and he's sounded out some very promising players. So I think West Ham fans can be quietly confident you're going to both add to your squad in terms of numbers, but quality as well, which isn't necessarily the case with you bunch, is it? Moving on to the transfer shock.
Yes, transfer shocker time, and this week Tuttosport are claiming that Juventus have turned down a proposal from Lazio, who want to give them Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, and in return they want Rodrigo Bentancur and £89 million. That is mental. I mean, that would be a great deal for Lazio, actually. They've had their arm off there if they do that.
Sort of shades of Zlatan Ibrahimovic for 40 mil plus Samuel Eto'o to Inter Milan, right? Yeah, I think that would be a favourable deal for Lazio. I also think Juventus, a lot of clubs could use this kid, right? He's brilliant, scored 12 goals last season, very prominent in the final third. We saw it for Serbia at the World Cup during the group stages as well. Very good at stitching midfield to attack. Big, strong physical presence. A lot of Pogba-like qualities. Seemingly can do it all. However, Juventus in that 4-2-3-1 don't necessarily need him, especially with Dybala at 10. Milinkovic-Savic would probably be deployed at 10, right? Higuain's got another season left at number 9 before Dybala maybe makes that move forward. So asking Juventus for probably the bulk of their transfer kitty at this point is probably unwise for a player they don't especially need.
Yeah, I'd rather have Bentancur if I were them. Like at least in the short term, when it comes to this amount of money. Like Bentancur is 21, really good ball recycler in midfield. You know, great defensive output, really good passing as well. I mean, if I'm Juventus, I'm not sure I'm looking at spending an absolutely colossal amount for Milinkovic-Savic. It's not like Lazio are direct title rivals. It just makes no sense to me. It's so much money.
Yeah, they were pursuing Bentancur for a little while at Boca Juniors, weren't they? And that's why they had that option to buy when he sort of rose to prominence, and they exercised it pretty quickly. And he's developed nicely and clocked up a decent amount of minutes last season. And they've already got attacking prowess in the form of Bernardeschi and Douglas Costa. Mandzukic is still at the club, so I think they're pretty set for attacking options. But Milinkovic-Savic is going to move big, and it's probably going to be, I think, they'll be able to get more for him from one of the top clubs, right? If Manchester United came in for him, if Real Madrid or Barcelona came in for him, he has been linked with Barcelona of late as well. I think they'd be able to get in excess of 100 million.
What does your instinct say? Where do you think he'll actually end up? Because we never really talk like that on this show, where we never say, this is what I think will happen. And I don't know. I mean, it feels very Man United-y.
His value has soared, not without foundation, because he's got brilliant potential. But the fact we're talking about him as £1 million plus player after one exceptional season, I think maybe the paper talk is a little bit premature, and the top clubs are going to stop, take a step back, and see how he develops next season as well. So I think that's probably the most realistic outcome. I think he has the attributes to play in the Premier League successfully.
Yeah, sure.
But I'd also love to see him at Barcelona, because he's just such a switch up from what they've had prior, right?
Yeah, I mean, it feels a bit more Paulinho-y in a sense, where it's just like, we're going to get a guy who's like big, physical. We're not going to
win headers.
we're not going to outpass you anymore. We're going to outpower you. That would be really fascinating to see from Barcelona.
Imagine him dovetailing with Coutinho, literally just protecting Coutinho like in American football.
It'd be like the Champagne, Ashley Young, and Fellaini. That's what that would be.
Fellaini. Now, you know, there's a £100 million player.
Swinging balls into the box. Headers at the back post. Amazing.
So that was transfer review for this week. Thank you for watching, guys. What teams, what leagues would you like to see us cover next week? Let us know in the comments below. I'm off to trade this back in at Sex, because I want to buy... What's a new game that's coming out? Red Dead Redemption 2. Is it out yet?
I don't know.
Don't know. You don't play games, do you? You play chess.
Yeah.
Which is also a game, but not on the Xbox.
Cool.
So, what else is on? You know, football out of Euro, football out of FDFC.
Well, make sure that you watch this next week on Euro Football Daily. Obviously, we've got Stat Wars, the champions, going on over there. We've got a new show with Ash and Hibbo, right, on FDFC, where they demonstrate their left-footed prowess. Both of them very, very good at football. What else do we have? I don't know. We've got 10s, 11s if you're not bored of the World Cup yet. And why would you be? It's the greatest event in football.
Well, you know, and on that bombshell, watch the live stream. Turn down the commentary on your TV. Turn me and Emil Heskey up. Nothing but love.